Okay.
The Emergency Services Committee meeting is now open. Present for the meeting, we have Bink Garbett, Kelly Campbell, Brooklyn Barnhart, and then we also have Chief Joey Rocky, Chief Rob Freeland, Assistant Chief Sean Enlow, and Kelly Jones. All right, first item on the agenda, this is a new committee. We do need to set a committee chair, so I'm going to turn it over to the three of you to discuss that and decide.
If anybody else wants it, I'll do it.
Okay, so Kelly, you nominate yourself.
A second.
Brooklyn Barnhart seconds that motion. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Kelly, the floor is yours.
All right. Chiefs and, yeah, go ahead. I apologize, I'm running behind, so a little bit out over here.
I'll start. I'm staying away from everybody because I'm sick, so
Gotcha.
I didn't want to have to reschedule this for whatever the third or fourth time that we tried to do this. So the last emergency services committee meeting we had, we were kind of in crisis, trying to find creative ways to retain the officers that we have and attract new. Fortunately, with Sean coming back, he was able to attract some people. However, whenever we left that last meeting, there were several things discussed. Some of those were retention bonuses, sign-on bonuses, possibly, if not those, higher hourly rates. But we never set on anything, and we kind of left the meeting with kind of giving me somewhat, I don't know if carte blanche is the right word, but just kind of try to do what I needed to do to attract people. But we never actually discussed any numbers. So we do have one new officer that started. Obviously, Sean started at a little bit higher rate because of his position and his experience. One of the officers that has not started yet comes with a lot of experience, a lot of background, a lot of training. And there have been some numbers discussed with that officer. And I don't want to start that officer at the rates that I was discussing and then, end up upsetting someone on the budget committee or, possibly, putting us in a position where, we can't afford it. So, that's where I kind of wanted to open up on. I know Sean has a presentation that he wants to do after we finish discussing this, which is kind of along the same guidelines. But I just wanted to kind of open the floor to that. I believe you were on the committee last time, Kelly.
I was thinking that right now you guys were working tons of hours because you were short-staffed. So were you were looking for 9, correct? Does that sound right? 9 full-time is what?
Yes, we did away with, before the end of the year last year, it was voted on by council to do away with part-time officers because unfortunately, every time that we would get part-time officers, there's so many places that are hiring full-time that we would lose them to those other jobs. So it was decided to do away with part-time and add a 9th full-time person. And then before we could even fill that position, we ended up losing 2 more officers.
How many full-time do we have right now?
Once the other officer starts in early April, that would put us at the 9.
And that was the one from Blanchester or Williamsburg?
Williamsburg, the one that was just sworn in last council
Okay.
meeting.
So you'll have 9 in April.
Correct.
All right.
What are you looking for?
We had kicked around, well, not kicked around, it was pretty solid, I thought, when we had walked away from that last meeting. we were discussing salary. Just like Chief had said, that we were paying part-time employees, getting them here and then equipping them. And then basically, once they get a little bit of experience and as soon as another surrounding town offers full employment, they were leaving. So we were trying to come up with the correct dollar amount to not step on anybody's toes, but to bring somebody in so we wouldn't keep doing this hiring and temporary.
A sign-on bonus or as far as a wage per
Well,
hour?
to recap on that, do you
It
remember?
was kind of both possibilities were discussed, but nothing was ever, we never landed upon an agreement for anything. It was just kind of left with, just kind of put the feelers out there and see what we can attract and what it would take to attract them. We still have, and the other thing another factor in that is if we bring somebody in at a higher rate, where does that leave the officers that are already here that have rode the storm and are still here through all the things that we've been through. I don't want to leave. I don't want to make them feel that they, if we did bring somebody in at a higher rate, that they were forgotten about or we didn't appreciate what they did for us.
So are you, do you know of a number that you're thinking will work as far as when the Williamsburg officer was brought here and signed in, like what was discussed with her?
The top out for patrolman, which is $24.
Okay.
That would still bring her coming in at a significant pay cut from what she's currently making. I know Sean has the ones that have been here before have been on the budget committees, have been on the emergency services committees. You may be somewhat familiar with the spreadsheets that I've made in the past with the comparisons. I handed that to Sean a couple of weeks ago, and Sean ran with it, and he has updated that, and I believe he has a presentation that he would like to give you for that. So I'll hand it over to him. You can just do it there, Sean. You don't want to. I'm sick. You don't want to be able to.
It's not so much of a presentation, rather than just really let me explain anything. Basically, there's a lot of numbers on there, but the top right is what I'm proposing to get us to be at a comparable rate with every police department pretty much in our area, comparable to us and even way smaller than us. The pay scale on the top left is what we are currently at. Most every police department, Mount Orb, the Veterans Police Department, which has no activity at all. Almost all police departments are starting with zero experience at around the $25 an hour rate. Mount Orb, I believe they're paying their part-time guys $25 an hour to start, which is more than our top out pay. On top of each one of the areas, it just shows the population and the square mileage. I didn't get to get the actual call volume to each one, but I know most of these villages and most of the towns, and our call volume and call aggressiveness from personal experience is most likely a lot more. Now, the rate the thing that I took up in the top right, so right now we have currently is that merit raise system that you guys had changed from a pay scale system. And this is just my opinion, like me personally, I don't like the merit raise system because I believe it creates an issue with like a police for profiting system or how can I explain it? So like when I was here when the merit raise system came out, and when I started, I had a pay scale so I could see my career projection go throughout my years of service. When the merit raise system came out, my first question was, okay, I want to be the best officer I could be. How do I make more money? How do I do that? How do I get to be a sergeant? How do I get higher in the pay scale? And the answer was, well, I don't know. So So what do we do then? What do I do at that point? So basically what officers do, specifically me, younger officers, guys that are aggressive, their first instinct is to go out and write everybody tickets. So you get a guy that goes out and writes 200 tickets, and I'm not discrediting anything that that guy does, because that's an important part of what we do at the police department as a whole, not as a singular unit. But you take that guy that goes out and writes 200 tickets a year, 300 tickets a year, he's a superstar. Then you take the guy that don't have that many tickets at all, but he's solving death cases or a rape case or major cases like that. How do you put a merit value or a numeric value on tickets versus a rape case? You know, how many points do you get for a rape case? You get what I'm saying? It creates if I want to make more money as an officer, I got to go out and do everything I can, as to where having that years of service and that longevity step, kind of like what's in the top right corner. And I just copied that based off of Mount Orb. I've never seen a police department, not saying that it doesn't happen, but most every police department has a structured career path of your projection salary. Where I do like the merit raises or the merit pay would be in situations where officers are taking on more duties than what a normal patrol officer would be, which is like the evidence room. That's a huge liability for just a patrolman to do as a regular salary job. Firearms instructor. If one of our guys get in a shooting, the firearms instructor is going to be in the federal court case when the lawsuit comes in. So that firearms instructor is taking on liability. Currently, there's no extra pay for a firearms instructor. So those are just some of the things that come to mind. Now, as far as like the retention bonuses and all that stuff, that stuff sounds nice, but me personally, I think paying a wage at least comparable to what all of the departments around our area is doing is going to help. Now, there is going to be some issues with attracting people coming here, but if all the departments make the same amount of money and we make the same amount of money as them, how do we attract good officers to come here? Now, and that's where I guess your retention bonuses and longevity pays and stuff like that can come into play. But I think just the hourly wage alone is going to be what helps this department succeed. The problem is there's no new officers that are coming out of the academies. Most of the academies around here have closed. And me personally, I don't want to hire a new officer. We've already got one brand new officer. It takes 5 to 6 years minimum to get a good seasoned officer making good decisions. So I don't want to have a whole roster of brand new guys. That being said, most of your brand new guys coming out of these academies are going straight into $35, $40 an hour jobs that are 45 minutes down the road from here, which leaves us to what's left. So like when Rob retires, and then I've got another officer that's considering leaving. If we have 2 spots available, how do we fill those spots if everybody in this area makes the same money, but we make way less? There's no benefit for them to come to Georgetown. Now, if we make comparable, I got an argument because a lot of people like to work with me. So that's how I've got the 2 to come here. Pretty much begged them to come. But where I was going with that is when those 2 spots open up, there's no more officers. So my strategy to get people into those 2 positions is to basically steal them from the area, right? I got to go to other departments that maybe don't pay as much, like the sheriff's office, or maybe somebody at other local departments that's just not having a good time at their police department. What's left is if the pay stays where it's at, the only officers that we're going to get, if we're lucky to get them, are going to be officers that can't get a job anywhere else. And that's usually due to criminal history, on-duty history. They can't keep a job at any other police departments. And in this past year or 2, I've seen more officers go to really good places that I never thought would get hired. I've seen officers get hired in this area that I never thought would see hired 2 to 3 years ago. That being said, departments are taking bigger and higher chances on officers that may have a lot worse backgrounds, may have a lot worse work ethics, and things of that nature. So really, I just want you to look at the numbers here. And I'm not asking that we pay more than anybody else. I'm just asking that we come close. That way, 5 years ago, I would be saying, my guys shouldn't be running into houses and fighting guys for $21 an hour. But now it's a different ballgame. When we lose employees here, we're going to be very hard pressed to regain them back. The ones that we got here, I know the retention bonuses and stuff was on the table, but from my talks with them, they're not even really concerned about that. They just want a good, decent, livable wage to where they don't have to think about going down the street and going somewhere else. But then you got guys like me and a couple of the other officers that, for the most part, no matter what we make, we're going to stay because we love the village and we love Georgetown. And the problem is I don't believe it's necessarily fair to pay them less because of their loyalty. So I'm just asking to take a look at it and look at what's comparable to what's going around in our area.
I have a couple questions. Patrolman wise, how many do we have?
Patrol are you talking now or when April, when?
It'd be 6 patrolmen,
Okay.
3 administrators, including myself.
All right. So out of those 6 patrolmen, how many hours per week do each get?
It's 80 hours pay period.
80 a pay for each. Okay.
But up until this point, there's quite a bit of overtime in there too, because I have to offer it anytime anybody wants a vacation day.
Gotcha.
Whatever
Right.
it might be.
So sergeant, you said there's 3 more.
Jesse the sergeant, of course, Sean's the captain, and there's me.
Okay. So 1, 1, and 1. Okay.
Is this a decision that this committee makes it on the pay, or does that go to HR as well? How does that work?
I'm assuming it would go to budget committee after this.
Okay.
But there's, I think, 2 of you are on budget committee.
I mean, Joey, just because you both are kind of, I think, maybe I'm not speaking correctly, but you both are kind of in the same, from my standpoint, kind of the same environment. How are you struggling as well to find and or retain people? Like what's that look like for you?
I just lost 2 guys. One guy was a full-time employee and the other gentleman was a part-time employee working a full-time rotation. So that's 2 guys that are working 96 hours every 2 weeks are gone. They both took full-time jobs at Mount Orb. I ran I had 12 applications, only 6 of them were qualified. And then after interviews today, that even got smaller. So to some degree, yes, to answer your question, it's the same thing. I mean, guys can leave here and drive Union Township. I've got a guy who works there full time. He's making $100,000 a year. I have 2 guys that work at Anderson. They're making $100,000 a year. So I mean, it's what Sean's saying is pretty much the emergency services world. It's the rich people. Kind of, unfortunately, Anderson Township steals from Claremont County, and Claremont County steals from Brown County, and we try to steal from Adams, but it doesn't always work. So
Is the same all true with you, that there's people that you're seeing getting hired that you would never thought would be?
I applied when I was about 15 years ago. I applied at the city of Norwood, and I went down to take their test, and I was like number 600. And I was like, holy shit, they're hiring 3 people, and there's 600 people here taking. I turned mine back in. I didn't bother taking it. Today, Anderson Township is hiring 6 people. Now that's the department making $100,000 a year. And they're hiring 6 people and they got 6 applications. So, I mean, it's just, I don't, 10 years ago, the people that are walking out of, I mean, they're walking out of the vocational school as a senior. They're graduating and can go to 10 departments and get part-time jobs. 10 years ago, if you didn't know somebody or didn't work, you had to know somebody to get these jobs that these 18-year-olds are graduating and we're fighting for them. And I mean, kudos to them, but 10, 12 years ago, these kids, I mean, you had to, volunteer and work to even get a part-time job. And I'm losing guys that's been in the service 2 years to full-time jobs. And that was unheard of 10, 15 years ago. I'm not going to say that some of them are getting hired. I didn't think they'd get hired because of their ability or that. It's just 10 years ago, you weren't walking out of high school with a Fire 2 degree and an EMT and walking into a paid department. I mean, they could literally, I could leave tomorrow and have 5 jobs by lunchtime, part-time jobs. There are that many jobs out there. So it sucks. And, the applications I had that were turned in, the one guy's 50, he can retire in 4 years. So I hire him in 4 years, he's retired. You know what I mean? And then, it's a dog eat dog world out there, and it's not, I don't see it getting better. I mean, there's a high school class going on now, and the 3 chiefs that did a panel interview were in here today. They're going to have them gobbled up before they even graduate. They know them by name. They go in there and sit and watch them during lectures, and they know them by name. And the day they graduate, they will snag them. And it's Claremont County departments.
That's the problem kind of that we're facing too, is when all the cops are gone, what do we do here in our village? I don't care about Mount Orb or Eastgate area. I care about obviously here. And I don't think, and maybe you guys realize it, but I don't know how dangerously close that this department almost became a part-time police department. Before I came in, one officer was leaving and stayed because I stayed here. If that officer would have left, this department was going to be a part-time police department. And this department cannot be a part-time police department with the call aggressiveness that it's got. And I don't mean the lockouts and the speeding tickets. I'm talking about the child porn cases and the major case files and the assaults and the domestics, the major cases that go on in this village that a lot of people just don't know about. Those calls can't go, obviously without help. So that
experience level too, because if you're a citizen, when you call the police, regardless of what you're a victim of, what your crime that you were a victim of, you assume that when the officer shows up, that they know what to do and they're going to do it. And if you're constantly have this rotating door of new people, you're beating your head against the wall because you're training them, and then you're training them for somebody else to take them. And then you're having to start right back to square one and try to get them through that training again and get them that experience. And, the public doesn't realize that you want that experienced officer to show up at your house. And I would assume that most people would think that the officer is, and that's what I want them to have that confidence whenever they do call, that the officer has the experience and the training to take care of the situation.
and we want them to stay. I want to create the guy when they come here that they love working here. Like when I was here before, like there was almost nothing I love this place. Every time I came to work, loved it. And there's guys here that are like that, that are diehard. And I want the people that we hire in my time here, I don't want to hire nobody else. I want to keep them until they retire.
All right, so I'm just trying to do some quick math, so I can present everything. If I take your right figure that you have presented up here top, and I'm asking questions, so correct me if I'm wrong. If I take the minimum pay you have over here and take this base pay you have here,
Yes.
For example, the patrolman would be making $4.19 more.
Yes.
Does that sound right?
Yes.
Sergeant $692 more, Captain $931 more, Chief $10. So if you get paid 80 hours of pay, patrolman cost would be $335.20. Sergeant would be $550, $360, and captain $744.80, chief $800. So you take the patrolman times 6, sergeant 1, captain 1, chief 1, that totals $41,0990. And then I assume you get 26 pays a year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 26 pays a year, that brings the total up from, again, this is minimum, not maximum. So the total up annual would be $106,849.60. Is that what you had figured?
I don't have that figure. You're the smart one there when it comes to that.
I built concrete, I'm retarded.
Yeah,
He's looking at, I mean, you have to look at the yearly budget.
Yeah.
It's not the next yearly budget.
yeah, and I don't, me personally, I don't even know what the budget looks like. I haven't even looked
Well,
at the budget
I
at this
can't,
point.
I don't know either. I'm just trying to, if I have to present this stuff, I gotta cover my bases for sure.
And that's the maximum amount because that is going off of the
That was
very
the
minimum.
minimum, right?
Yeah.
Right. I just want to make sure I was figuring that right.
I got the same for the patrolman. I didn't do the rest of them.
So what are you guys thinking as a whole on what they,
Well, it's an issue that I think we're all dealing with. I know my occupation's the same way. We're struggling trying to figure out how we can bring somebody new. We're having people quit to go get more money. It's that simple. And then we can't offer that pay. So we're trying to figure out how to do more with less people. So I'm right there with you. So
how do you, how do you,
well, the simple solution is you have to bring base pay up here. That way you show your guys you respect what they do. And then you can offer better pay to bring someone in. I mean, that's the cut and dry, simplest way. If you had an endless budget, you just bring your rates up, just like Sean has suggested. This is kind of his right top figure would be, this is what our scale should be to be competitive. And then that way your officers want to A, stay, or B, switch what they're doing and come here. So I completely understand what you're saying. It makes perfect sense. It's just, what can we afford? I think last meeting, Robert and I, we had talked about, I think you were looking at possibility of having 6 officers total. And then if that happened, we were thinking as far as, are we just going to be weekend,
I mean,
police officers? Or are we talking an 8-hour minimum
I
or?
mean, we would cover as much as we possibly could.
Right.
There'd obviously be some holes there where there would either be only one officer on duty or, which is definitely a factor of.
I guess what would be a good figure, while I'm thinking about it, would be if you guys could, well, and I think you did this before. I just need to find that paperwork. Do you remember if you did a cost, because what he's doing now is he's got to pay overtime to cover hours. So with the cost of overtime, that's more than your normal salary. And maybe we could see the difference of what we're paying over versus what this new pay would be. I mean, and I'm pretty sure you had that written down.
I did before, like I said, this is Sean's first time.
Right.
Wanting to get the experience.
Yes.
That's something we need to do. I mean, Greg's learning as well, so that's numbers I have to get from him.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's definitely a factor. Another factor is, the thing is, one, can we afford it? And how can we get closest to this number?
Correct.
And not be in the red?
Yes.
Because the other factor is, until the village changes the way they're doing it, is, like the Bragg County Sheriff's Department, they have to pay for something that comes out of the check for their insurance. We don't have that, luckily, so far.
Right.
I don't know when I'm sure that will change eventually, hopefully later than sooner, but, that is a factor. But, unfortunately, when you have somebody in their 20s and they come in that doesn't really use their health insurance, probably doesn't have a baby, or maybe not even have a family, they don't really care about the insurance,
Right.
There's a thing you tend to think about, you get a little older and have a family.
So my questions for you guys to think about, just my input is, are you, so we went through a wage exercise in the last couple of years at some point
It seems like we're having this discussion on
Yeah.
a yearly basis.
with both police and fire.
Yeah.
So, and then on top of that, currently in the HR committee, prior to all the changes, they were going through an overhaul of the wage across the board. So each department by department, that wasn't finished. And then my third point is, to think about would be, do you focus solely on one department, or do you focus on the two departments that you cover? Do you think that it's just this department that needs revamped, or does that department? I mean, those are things I think you need to think about before you take numbers to budget. That would be my suggestion. And then, the HR committee, and if one or two of you are on that, that's something that I'm gonna bring up to the HR committee, because you gotta be timely with this too, because in my opinion, if you do another raise, no offense, to the police department, I think you might get some disgruntled employees over in utilities, over in, waters, any of that, because we never got through that since those raises. So I think it can be done very quickly in HR, within just a month or two, but there's still work that needs to be done inside of there to get to the whole grid as a whole. So maybe it could be, if this is something that everybody wants to do, or you think budget's going to want to do as well, I would suggest making the timeliness of it one project, everything all at once, so it doesn't create any animosity. Just my opinion.
If I may, not trying to influence one way or the other, gentlemen, is since I've been here, I have had discussions with department heads, and I believe it's been 2 years since they've even had an increase.
We did merit, and merit's coming this year
The
too.
merit,
Yeah.
and they were gonna change that back to step raises, or there's been different talk.
Discussion, yeah.
But as a village council, we try to keep all employees happy, and sometimes that's a juggling act. We know that. I was approached today in a different department where, they're offering one of our employees more money than I'm making. And I mean, this is a lower level employee, and everybody's facing it. I mean, the police and fire, I feel sorry for you policemen. I mean, I've been a policeman most of my life, and trying to find an officer to fill these positions like pulling teeth. And Joey, we have discussions on a regular basis on, the revolving door, and it's rough, but it's not just emergency services. It's getting into all departments. It's hard for a village administrator to find people that are qualified to fill street department jobs, water jobs. I mean, with the licensing requirement and everything, and council is in a position where they have to decide.
Well, I think it's our job to kind of tell you what I'm thinking here. It's our job to meet with the head of each department to see how many numbers you need to be successful, like what you can live with and without. Same with everywhere. And then how many employee total we need. And then go from there, and it's going to have to be a number that is going to work for everybody as far as employee based, and then we'll try to see what we can work out. So since you're in here and you're talking, your 9 is your good number, correct?
Yes.
And that was 6 patrolmen, 1 sergeant, 1 captain, 1
What I
chief.
deal with that is whenever we have, somebody that's either out sick or takes vacation or whatever, we can move people around.
Gotcha.
Fill those holes, which we used to fill with part-time.
Got you. Now, how are you looking on, is there any huge expenses that you're going to be needing to where it's going to be like, hey, man, we spent a bunch of money on you. What?
Well, we were gonna buy a cruiser this year. We kind of shoved that aside. It was approved, but we're gonna shove it aside, try to stretch the cars out a little bit longer. I mean, I know Sean's got a lot of ideas he wants to implement, and, you know, that would give some money for that and stuff like this. Because, I mean, cruisers, we used to be able to get a brand new Crown Vic for less than 20 grand. Now a cruiser's $37,000.
Right.
State bid.
Right. And then I think, Joey, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't you drive clear across the country to get one?
I drove to Chicago.
Yeah, just to try
Well,
to
I
save
flew
some
to
money.
Chicago group
Did you
back.
get it from Chicago Motors?
No,
Oh, okay.
we passed it.
If you want a new one, you pretty much have to order it here. They've never, the car, the motor, geez. The car manufacturing has not recovered from COVID completely as good.
Finding out one was, you know, I mean, I had outfitters looking for vehicles, and I finally found, stumbled across it on Facebook and thought it was a scam, but it ended up not being. But I mean, I had, you know, these companies that outfit police and fire, and they were like, well, good luck, because we can't find them, so.
And our last one was actually, if you look underneath in the door jams, I think it was fire engine red, because it was one that the fire department ordered and decided they didn't want. And if you lucked out and got it, so.
So what are you guys thinking as a whole? What do you think next steps are, or is there next steps?
The next step, in my opinion, is, in the very, very near future, meet with as many people as we can. And like, as far as, like you said, it makes perfect sense. You can't just single out a division and just tend to their needs, not over somebody else's. And it's not fair as anybody who's been here 15 years and never seen, what'd you say, 2 years for?
Well, I don't know what
We
they.
did a merit last year,
Oh, that's
but
right.
we're at the point where we need to do a merit this year. We need to, like, probably next week in the next meeting.
In the meantime, we can get with Craig and get those numbers.
Yeah, if you could do that.
And, you know, because like I said, the last thing I want to do is put us in a position where we're landing a plot 2-3 years down the road because we overextended ourselves.
Right.
And Kelly, are you on the HR committee?
Sounds right. Yeah.
So in that committee, we
Right.
have most of those interviews pretty much already done.
Okay.
With good documentation on it. So might be able to use that potentially. I think the last department was the utilities, and we started on that, and then that's when things kind of got derailed. So,
Anybody else have anything? Joey, you have anything?
I do actually, we went full-time in 2019, and the position, the unit 1 position that's open right now, have gone through 5 people. 4 of them left to go to better jobs, and 1 we terminated. But, I mean, so since 2019, we've gone through 5 people. You know, 1 of them went to Woodlawn, 1 of them Anderson, and then 2 of them went to Mount Orb, actually. So, well, 1 went to Central Joint, 1 went to Mount Orb. So, you know, you know, the 2 other guys that we have, Matt Dyer and Kevin, they fortunately, but unfortunately, they're middle-aged men. Okay, they don't want to go to the city where they're just going to get the guts run out of them. So, you know, I don't worry about them leaving too much. But when you hire these young guys, you don't want to hire old people that are near the end of their career, but you hire these young guys, and then, you know, and then all of a sudden Union Township says, hey, we're looking for 6 guys. We'll pay you $100 grand. Well, they're gone. And then you got a set of gear that was fitted to this guy. And now you're stuck with $6,000 worth of gear that, you know what I mean? It's a double-edged sword. What do you do? But you know, we've got some expenditures coming up. I want to talk about that. So, I mean, I'm not saying throwing money at people. That sounds bad, but you know what I mean? I mean, you gotta work that budget if you can. I know Kelly and I talked about some big ticket items, expenditures, and I was expecting our cardiac monitors to last another 5 years. Well, they came out to do service on them and told me that this is the last year that I'll be able to buy a service contract on them because they're timing them out because they're end of life. They're $40,000 a piece, and we've got 3 of them. So, I mean, that was a blow I wasn't expecting to, we can ride them out until they quit working, but, I mean, every year we normally buy a service contract for them, and, if we drop them or something goes wrong in them, they fix it. But after this, everything that goes wrong with them will be on us. And it's probably a matter of time that before they come in and say, hey, these things are obsolete, you need to get rid of them. Because after a while, they do become obsolete because of the blood pressure and the monitoring and all that just times out on them. So
So what are those? What are you saying?
cardiac monitors,
Oh,
it's a
okay.
AED monitor. Basically, they're our biggest tool we've got that we use on every single run. And so that was I was kind of shocked. We had one of the cots, one of the power load systems on the cot quit working. So I called them and had them come out and repair it. And it was an $800 part. And I said, well, is this going to be covered under the service agreement? And he said, well, the service agreement ended yesterday. So, but I did talk to him, and I was like, well, you don't notify us of that. I was like, it's like always before we got to think, you type the contracts up, set them in advance. So they agreed that they're going to send me another contract, and as long as we do another year, that they'll warranty that, if you will. So, but that's just kind of how my luck goes. But so my question was, I know we're 2 months into the year. When does the budget become finalized, Kelly?
Should be the next meeting. It could have been this past meeting, but they chose to have it for another 2 weeks to review it.
On top of that, 2 of our thermo cameras quit working, which is the cameras we use to search homes and that for people. Two of the 4 we had died, and so I sent them off to MSA, and they're not repairable. So we're down to 2. One of those is older, and it needs batteries, and the company doesn't make batteries, so you have to buy them off of eBay batteries and put in them. So, that's a all this stuff is just kind of going to crap in a hurry here in this time of this year, actually. So, they're not terribly expensive, $5,000, but it's expenses that I wasn't prepared for, that I told Kelly, I don't have any big ticket items glooming. And then a month later, hey, Kelly. So, we're going to be spending a little bit of money. Our generator and extrication tools finally went out to bid. So, the opening on those is March 14th. It's the bid opening on them. I did get an email today requesting more information on the extrication tools. I sent that to them. So, we'll see how it goes. So hopefully, we can get those wrapped up and get those awarded. I do know the generator, the one company that Kelly and I met with, told us that it could take a year to get the generator. So we might be looking at 2025 before we have it in place. So hopefully that's not the case, but he said that, getting the larger generators are tough to come by. So
What size is the one you're bidding out?
100 kVW. Natural gas. We was able to work with Duke, and they agreed to come out and then bore underneath the parking lot, because I didn't want to dig up the parking lot that we just paid to have repaired. So they will bore under the parking lot, hook it all up, run all the lines, and there's no cost to us as long as we have the generator up and running in 6 months from the time that they make the hookup, which shouldn't be a problem. We'll just schedule it all together. So originally we looked at diesel, just because we didn't want to chew up a $35,000 parking lot. And they assured us that the diesel would be fine. But with that, you have a fuel problem. It's only going to run so long. When a tank of fuel to our natural gas is, unless we have an earthquake, is going to be endless. So.
Were you able to determine if you had money left over from your grant for your tools, if you could use that for other items that you maybe have?
We could, but it has to be approved. So we'll have to submit a change order. Yeah. Change order, and they have to approve it before we could earmark it for that. Kelly and I had talked about holidays. Is that something I need to take to the human resources?
Yes.
Because currently our our full-time guys only get paid time and a half on Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. And I just, I mean, I'm Juneteenth and those crazy holidays I don't care a whole lot about, but, the guys had mentioned, like, hey, Labor Day, 4th of July, everybody else for the village, with the exception of us and police, are off. We're forced to be here. Shouldn't there be, a little additional pay? So, I talked to them and, and they're not asking for much either. It's just a few of those bigger holidays that they felt like that, it's only fair that, if the other departments are off and you're forced to work, that you should be compensated for that. So, and I agree. So
It's the same way with yours too. You guys just,
I know it is.
I don't know.
Yes, that definitely, the sheriff committee for that one, for the holidays. So as they're revamping the pay schedule, that can be worked in there too.
Oh, the only other thing is it's a big thing too, and it feels like my ship is sinking, but I received a letter, our billing company is dropping us effective May 31st.
Why?
They won't say. They won't call me back, at least. So I've reached out to two other companies that came highly recommended by other departments in the county that I reached out to. And as soon as I started the conversation, they're like, let me guess, you got a letter from Change Healthcare. And I was like, yes. I was like, do you know what's going on? And they didn't. They wouldn't elaborate. But I know all week I've been getting emails from them that there was a huge cyber bling, some kind of attack on them. So I need to talk to Joe Braun and see if we need to stop sending, if they were, if it was breached, do we need to stop sending billing information to them until they get it secured? But anyways, both of the companies that I talked to are working up a quote. I had to send them a bunch of statistics on last year, number of runs, number of transports, how many were BLS, ALS, ALS2, how many were Medicaid, how many's Medicare, blah, 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 blah. Unfortunately, your billing companies will prepare that for you. So I was able to get it to them rather quickly. They're working up a quote. And both of them said they could have us up and running by May 31st. So
How does that work? Do you have to submit all that stuff?
we have a reporting software. It's called ESO. So we enter it in, we enter it into our laptop as we're doing the run, blah, 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 and we submit it and it goes to ESO. They then go over it and critique it and make sure everything's right. And then they send it to the billing company. And the billing company takes it from there. They charge it, they take a certain percentage of the money that we receive is how they're paid. So yeah, I've tried to reach out to them and left messages and emailed and they won't respond. So I don't know what's going on with them, but
So if you go and you make a fire run, ambulance, whatever, and let's just say you go to, Dan Smith's house, do you instantly charge? How do we get paid?
we don't charge for fire run.
Okay.
Okay, we only charge for EMS. So basically, we transport John Smith to the hospital. We enter the report. It's a 6-page report. We submit it to our reporting company, which is ESO. They go in, do all I don't know how they do it, but we don't put any of like the insurance information. So they use the social security number and that, and they track all that down. They submit it to the billing company, and then we get paid monthly, or it's actually like every 2 weeks. They'll drop it, and it goes straight to our account. It's automatically put into our account. It averages somewhere between $30,000 and $38,000 a month. It's about what we generate.
So you're saying you don't charge to go on a fire run? But what happens when you go to BZACs every week? Like, what do we do about that? Do we just?
Yeah, I mean,
It's a conversation that needs to be had.
Yes.
It is a big conversation that needs to be had.
It's the same thing with maybe a certain nursing home that uses
Yes.
them as a transport company versus a real emergency situation.
Right.
Yeah, it's a conversation. guys have 8 minutes before the next meeting.
I'm finished, that's all I got. I don't have any more bad news today.
Again, I'll get with the mayor because I'm new at this. I'll see what the next steps needs to be. If you guys could, I'll look back. If I have it, I'll let you know. And I'll need to get your number too. If you don't care if I just text you or call you.
Yeah, you got
Cell phone. Yeah.
Probably have it somewhere.
Yeah, I know where I have it if it's on there, so I'll be able to find it. What about you? You got anything?
Yes, sir.
Bing, got anything to bring up?
The thing I was just wondering about, and I don't know how much difference this will make, is if we go to this new pay scale on the right, how many officer number 1, officer number 2, and then senior officers are there currently? Like how many, and I know that may change, but
It was, you said 6?
0 to 2s.
Oh, 0 to 2.
I think the rest are probably 4 to 6.
2 in that one, 4, and then those other ones.
So, and
We'll be
basically, like I
moving
said,
up
basically I just stole this straight from Mount Orb, the way they structured it, because
Yeah.
it made sense, and then you would just keep up with the
Yeah.
cost of living raises after that. So the other positions, they're not any step raises, that's just where they're at until you, unless you inflate cost of living. Yeah, but
And then the new girl that you have hired in with all the experience, she would be starting out as a senior.
yeah, 4 to 6. And that's common almost everywhere. It's called a lateral transfer, kind of like I did when I went to the sheriff's office. Pretty much anywhere you go, if I went to Loveland, they would lateral me in at 17 years, and I would immediately get the pay of a 17-year veteran for that department. And same with vacation time as well.
You have anything? Mayor? All right, well, we'll talk about it, see what we can come up with, and I'll let you guys know when we can plan another one. Do that. I don't know, we just ended?
Entertain motion.
I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor, signify aye.
Aye.
All right, motion.
Joey.
Thank you, guys.
That's what you were
Hey.
doing.